Well, hello, it's Jennifer here. So glad to be here with you. I'm fresh off some conversations, actually. Maybe you felt this way, fresh off some conversations about how everything is moving so quickly. Not only is it moving so quickly, but there are so many changes that we can feel coming politically, economically, in many, many different ways. And we're not really sure what's going to happen. And as a result, what's happening is the collective nervous system is a little overwhelmed. It's destabilizing when one of the things that our amygdala seeks is stability and predictability and control. But life was really designed to be filled with change and catalysts and evolutions. We're certainly in one of those times right now. So I've been in front of quite a few people lately, especially, who are asking me questions like, how come going for a walk doesn't work anymore to get me, feeling centered? How come I feel as though there's this little, I don't know, like I don't want to make big decisions right now, or I don't feel grounded enough to do that? And how come the tools that I usually use are not effective, the way I feel right now? And what I want to say is that if you've been feeling that way, maybe a little ungrounded, maybe a little like anxious, perhaps a little overwhelmed, not always. There's this underlying feeling right now because of what's going on in the world. The world is about I don't know, we're standing on the precipice of a fairly big evolution in consciousness, in the way that we plug into life. It's quantum leaping. It feels like, one of those 7-year Moore's laws thing. Moore's law says that every 7 years, everything exponentiates, and usually he relates it to technology. But because of technology, it's literally also another aspect of everything that's changing. We're already a technological world, but now it's being exponentiated by quantum computers, which work completely on the laws of physics, and they don't work on zeros and ones. They work on all possibilities all at once. It's kind of like that movie, Everything Everywhere All at Once. So we're going from one way of being used to plugging into the world to a whole other way of plugging into the world. And our bodies are aware of that. The communication, 75 trillion cells giving off biophotons, but also the world itself is the world, nature, others, 8 billion people are giving off biophotons too about what's going on in their world. And we're senders and receivers of those photons. This isn't a woo-woo concept. This is a biological fact. So you are plugged into the world, and we are all connected in so many ways. That's one of them. Those biophotons contain information about what's going on with each other and the evolutions that are happening. So you got to know we're all aware on some level, right? So when we quantum leap, when we go from one entire operating system to another entire operating system, we call it in our work, we call it a thriving operating system shift, or a spiral jump. That's what we call it. When we go through a spiral jump, you can't work harder at the old. So it's like, oh, I'm going to go for a walk. Now I'm just going to walk faster. Or I'm going to go and meditate. Now I'm just going to go, meditate longer. It actually requires tools that haven't even been invented yet, because the tools that we've been using so far, this quantum leap has to do with, I would say, probably a 30-year used to-ness, so like a generation and a bit's used to-ness of a way of being. The young ones that are coming up are going to be plugged into the speed of what's going on now. But anyone who's over 30, I would say, is going to have to get real. So let me give you an example. This is how it feels. This last weekend, I'm kind of sheepishly and humbly saying I won an award for leadership, and I went to Opryland in Nashville, Tennessee, and they had an ice sculpture um, presentation that I could go and see, but I didn't know that it was Frosty the Snowman, and then it was going to be all little kids. So I've been to I'm from Canada. I've been to ice sculptures before. So my used to-ness is, you have lots of space and time and it's fun and there's, it's sweet and, amazing pictures and you get different, and there's lots of space to do that. Well, this was a commercial extravaganza. And I already knew before I went in, I'm like, oh my God, I'm not in Kansas anymore. And I walked in and it was back-to-back kids. It was squished in. People were joining the ice train and this and that. And the pathway was hardly wide enough for like 3 people. And it was too much. It's just like my nervous system was not ready for that. So I literally went, and if I had to, I would have to do, if that was the only way to live, if that was the only place I could live, I'd have to grow big enough to include that paradigm, right? I paid $60 to tell you this story. I mean, it was amazing. I'll post some pictures. It was incredible ice sculptures, but I couldn't even look at them. So what happened was that I let myself I went into a corner where nobody was, which was very hard to find. And I just went, okay, what do I need to do? And I grew bigger than the situation. So that's one of the tools. I got bigger than what was going on. I realized that I'll be out the other side and these families are having fun and the kids are like in awe. And I remember being that little kid and kind of connecting to all of that. And then I saw right beside me was one of the workers, and it wasn't really easy to see how to get out. And when you're in a situation like that, it's like, so I said, could you show me how to get out? And she basically led the way through all the families and the kids. And within 5 minutes, I was out the other side. And when I got out the other side, because I grew bigger than the situation and appreciated the kids, remember when I would have been one of those kids going, and I got out the other side and right in front of me was a skating rink, and I grew up skating. And so I went over and got some ice skates and I skated around their skating rink in Nashville, Tennessee for, I don't know, probably half an hour. It was awesome. It's the last thing I did before I got on the plane. So when you start, one of the tools is growing bigger than what's coming. So you might say, what the heck does that mean? You have an imagination. You've already gone through spiral leaps in your life. If you've gotten married, you went through a spiral leap. You had to, if you moved in with someone, you've had to kind of come into a new paradigm. If you've added new features to your website, or if you've evolved your business, you have had to become someone new. This is life. This is life. This is a biggie because it's going to pervade your shopping experiences, your phone interactions. You're going to eventually get a new computer that's going to operate an entirely different way. How we run businesses with AI is going to change. These are massive paradigm shifts. And the entire way the American government works is going to change, and the relationship with our international friends is going to change as well. This is not a political discussion. This is just a fact. So I don't judge these things, because when you judge, you get in trouble. But We need to grow bigger. So imagine it's 5 years from now, and you've allowed yourself to grow bigger than the circumstances to come. You've already lived 5 years. You've mastered navigating with the new technologies. You're now doing, I don't know, amazing phone conferences. Maybe you got super curious about, part of tech. Maybe you have already understood some of the business evolutions that are wonderful and flashy, and all this stuff that's going to happen because of the governmental shifts, some of the opportunities that may happen. Maybe you've let go of some things that aren't happening, but we're growing bigger by actually considering that we don't even need to know what's going on, but because we're awake and aware and we're blessed and smart enough and that we have brains, we've already gotten bigger than all of it. We've already included everything that could happen. We've already allowed our body to catch up to that, just like I did in the Frosty the Snowman. Holy crap. And even there, when it was right in my face, it's not in your face yet. It's going to start getting real how much is coming, which is why we all feel a little bit like our tools are not working. So first thing is grow bigger than. The second thing is, when things move this fast, there is a skill to master. It's one of the 24 tenets of the thriving operating system. And that skill is called doing what presents. It's a skill whereby, minute by minute, hour by hour, you do what's in the highest. You do what life is giving you. It's not about rationality. It's not about analysis. It's not about weighing pros and cons. In the world to come, doing that kind of stuff. So for those of you that are heady and that try to not, so oftentimes I've worked with people, and I used to be one of them. That's probably why I attract these people. And my dad's dad was an engineer. My dad was always trying to get things right because he was always trying to get his dad's approval. And then that got projected on us as kids, trying to get things right. I could feel it from him. So I just thought that's the way that you be. You gotta weigh the pros and cons. You can get I used to get very anxious about getting it right. I took it on myself. And really, it was my dad's ancestry. It wasn't even my dad, right? And so here I am, running around weighing pros and cons, and I can't even let anyone else contribute to me, because if I get it wrong, or if I get it right, it has to be up to me. So if other people contribute to me, then I won't have gotten it right because other people would have helped, right? So very lone wolfy. Well, that heady way of analyzing and being anxious, it's not going to work in the world to come. Our instincts and intuition are going to be everything. Our presence really is what I'm talking about. Being able to be in our own presence is really going to be everything. And that's a skill, doing what presents, and doing it efficiently, effectively, and generally relatively immediately as well. So the time that we spend, the amount of time that we spent making decisions as over 30s, that's we're going to have to get used to. So that's part of the new operating system, is being so present that thinky way of being doesn't work anymore. Now, why am I sharing all of this? Because doing what presents is a skill that requires about, 5 different changes in the way we do our day-to-day, which is not for today to talk about. I'll give you more information on that later. But And doing what presents, it may be what you think needs to get done, but oftentimes it's not what you think needs to get done. It's more about, it's more about what's right in front of you. Like the person's name crosses your mind and then you get right on it. It's really about being present to your connection to your greater wisdom, and that which wouldn't be so rational. And executives and trainers and leaders are going to have to get real good at that real fast. And I feel blessed to be in the mastery of that and being able to pay it forward. But let me tell you, it took me a long time. Fortunately, it doesn't have to take everybody else a long time. So doing what presents is one thing. Being so present. So doing what presents requires not being pulled by the outside world. It requires not being pulled by the wants of your wife or your husband. It requires not being pulled by the worries of your kids. It requires not being pulled by the craziness of the world. It literally requires finding a state of neutrality that's so powerful that nothing pulls you out. And so all of the answers you need are either forthcoming, or the resources are right there, or you know exactly who to ask. And there's a state of being that allows you to be in that magical flow all the time. Another tool that's essential is to be able to know what in the moment when you are feeling pulled, or when you are being reactive, or when you are finding yourself getting over analyzing. It's a new word. It's a Jenniferism, over analyzing. How about that one? When you are finding yourself getting that way, when you're feeling like I said, overwhelmed by maybe emotionality or whatever, maybe even this holiday season, it requires you to have transcendent tools. So one of the tools I love in these times of great change is not only to grow bigger than your circumstances, but to do it before you get to the holiday dinner, or to do it before you get to that big meeting. That you actually put yourself on the other side of it, having already experienced it. So an old tool would have been visualization. Visualization will not work anymore. It's not going to work. It's not going to work, because what happens is we get attached to what we visualize. So visualization is not going to work. However, getting yourself, because it's too specific, because it actually tries to control the circumstances instead of being fluid. It's like, this is what I want, and this is what I want, and this is what I want, and this is what I want. What's going to be far more effective is going to the other side of the meeting or the holiday gathering or whatever it is, and actually imagining how you feel out the other side. Imagining how you have interacted out the other side. Imagining the satisfaction. Imagining that you've given yourself spaciousness. Imagining that what it feels like to not have been reactive, but to have been, let's say, inclusive of all possibilities. It's getting out the other side and allowing yourself, it's imagining the other side of it, and being on the other side, retroactively imagining what you would have felt, how the interactions would have been. It's a future projection of the meetings, talking about those meetings or those events as if they've already happened. Let me give you an example. So today, after this, I'm just thinking about, I have a meeting, a business meeting this afternoon with a couple of people that have an extraordinarily visionary company. However, they're struggling because they're in Asheville. So I really love them. It's a husband and wife. She's very expansive and idea focused. He's very grounded and on earth. And so I'm going to do a future activation. I'm going to talk about the meeting as if it's already over. Okay. And you guys can come along with me. Imagine that whatever meeting or interactions you have, you can use this future activation. You ready? You can borrow mine. I had such a great meeting. It was filled with unexpectedly effective, creative results for them. We were all excited moving forward. We found ourselves clearing the decks of stuff that doesn't work anymore. We found ourselves co-creating possibilities that none of us had even thought about in this business meeting. We really dropped into a deeper sense of intimacy with each other, and there was a level of knowing each other that transcended even the idea of trust. And we also found ourselves really excited for the next time we get together because of all the eventualities that happened. That happened during the meeting. It's like, oh my gosh, can't wait for the next time. It was so good. It was so good. I felt very complete at the end of that meeting. I felt like we did exactly what we came for, or better. Now, I want you to know that I end all of my future activations with or better. Even before coming on today, I future activated this interaction, and then Adam helped me with some stuff, and away we go. So future activations, as opposed to visualizations, are going to be far more effective, because what they do is they put you in the vibe, but they make you more fluid. They put you in the vibe of what you're up to. They don't tell you how you're going to do it, and they don't attach you to any results. It's about how you feel in the interaction. It's not about what happens in the interaction so that you can be attached to the feeling because that's conditional. Do you get it? If this happens, then I'll feel good. Well, that's conditional. And that's how most people do visualization. They're like, I want this, I want this, I want this. And then if they don't get them, of course, they feel different. This starts with the end in mind. How do I want to feel? And then you're telling consciousness and life how you want to feel. And you're imagining, you're literally letting yourself feel the feelings of being in the meeting. And then there you go. That's what happens. So that's a second really important tool. I mean, we get into that more in our Thriving Operating System program, but we're going to do some of that in the upcoming Reset and Renew workshop that's coming the end of this month on the 28th. And let me just tell you briefly what we're doing in Reset and Renew. In Reset and Renew, we're, first of all, on the 28th, we're completing this year. We're actually doing a bit of a post-mortem on this year, everything that you accomplished, everything that you did not. We're clearing the decks, but then we're going to give some skills as to how to move into the next year. And we're going to do a massive group future activation, but I am actually going to facilitate you on a methodology to do a future activation for your own year to come. And then what we're going to do is a very special exercise that I do only with myself, except for last year and this year. I'm sharing something that I've done personally for decades. And we're doing an exercise to build a bridge from this year to the energy of next year so that you are way out ahead of next year. And then in the beginning of January, we're diving in, and we are actually going to collectively be in next year. I think it's on the 11th. And that's the second half of the workshop. And we're going to start moving some serious energy and make sure that you are landed and feeling in flow on your plans and expansive. It's a two-parter because I find it's far more effective than trying to do all of those at once. It's better to do some of the work in the year before, and then after a couple of weeks, now you're landed, then we do the rest of the work. So today, you guys, let's just grow ourselves bigger. Let's grow ourselves bigger than these holidays. Let's not live our life like we're trying to get things over with or like we're trying to survive them. You wouldn't have been born in this time if everything that's happening right now wasn't happening for you to be able to thrive. Infinite wisdom doesn't make mistakes. So you must have the capacity to be able to not just be okay with what's to come or make it through white knuckling it. You have the capacity to flourish. You have the ability to flourish through it. So I'd love to hear from you. What did you hear today from me? Or do you have any questions? What did you hear from this little conversation today? Have you been feeling a little bit of, like, put it into the comments. Have you been feeling that sense of like impending something's going to happen, or that kind of sense that, wow, everything's moving really fast, or that sense that, so this is one of my favorite things. Well, my favorite things is not everyone's favorite thing, I can tell you that. Have you been feeling the feeling of, oh, you're welcome. I'm glad I could share today. Have you been feeling the feeling like the ground underneath you is moving, but you don't really know how it's moving, so you don't even know what direction to go? I call it a floaty feeling. It's a little unnerving. Have you been feeling that? Yeah, so you are not alone. I think if most people were honest, they would say that there's a little bit of that going on. It depends on how much you've lived your life needing to feel in control. So it's that feeling of floatiness and the feeling of it being unnerving, the unnerving piece of the I don't know what's going on. Okay. The unnerving or the anxious part is going to be directly proportionate to the degree that you felt that you need to have control. So to the degree that you're someone that has felt like you need to have control is directly proportionate to the amount of anxiety you might be having right now. The solution to that, which we're going to work through and reset and renew, is around transcending that. Like, what do you do instead of trying to control things? Are you going to be anxious for the next 5 years? I hope not. So what's the alternative way of being? What are we going to do? And Holly, I totally get it. I totally get it. And the thing is, often when we feel floaty or trying to regain control, we don't want to talk to anybody else. Because if we talk to anybody else, the only way, remember how I said at the beginning of today, the only way to feel in control is if you do it yourself. So I don't want to talk to anyone. I don't want to process anything. I don't want to tell anyone too much about what I'm going through because, what if? I have to make sure that, like, I'm already out of control. I don't need other people's input. You see what I mean? It makes it worse. Ignore things too, Holly. Exactly. So guys, I'm going to give you an idea of the other way to be. Of course, this is a practice that we'll start teaching it in Reset and Renew, but just to give you kind of a clue, the way of being shift from trying to control and predict what the outcomes are going to be so that you can feel safe, because this is really a safety thing, is to actually unplug from pretending that you're a child of of humanity and starting to relate to yourself as a divine child of an infinite universe. If you want me to say it in less spiritual terms, I would say pragmatically, to become an expert at the laws of physics so deeply, to connect to your own innate flow and your own innate personality and your own innate, let's say, central channel of processing as it relates to the quantum field, and understanding that scientifically and pragmatically so deeply that your confidence lies in that way of operating rather than trying to manipulate, orchestrate, or control a very fickle human-based humanity. The quantum world is already way beyond what's going on in humanity. And if you can relate to yourself from that greater picture, now we're talking about going way beyond needing to be in control. You're literally able to dance with whatever comes your way without the fear of the earthly stuff, because you're dancing in the part of you, which is 99.139% of you, that is actually completely connected to the greater field. That's a thing. So, yeah, we'll talk about that on January, the second day of Reset and Renew, by the way. But I wanted to give you guys a sense that there's a way of plugging into life that way. So I hope this has given you a little bit of help, right? I hope this is like, you're not crazy. There's nothing wrong with you. It's very normal, but it is essential. And it is essential, but it is essential. It's so essential to clear the decks of this year and then to start to activate yourself, being able to plug into life in a whole new way, because we're in a whole new kettle of fish. And we're going to see you guys again next Monday, same bat time, same bat channel. And next Monday, we have another just freaking totally juicy topic. It's really about how the heck do you focus when so much is going on, and the really cosmic sense of focus, meaning how do you get right into the channel of what shakes and bakes you and your divine flow. So we're going to talk about what that means, and a story that happened to me recently that I can't wait to share, because it'll be the first time I'm sharing about kind of realizing that I've had some arrogance about being focused. So anyways, can't wait. Okay, you guys, don't. See